Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com, promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in as we wrap up another week. Thank you for spending a few minutes of your day with me. More breaking news out of Israel as Israel and Hamas have agreed to phase one of a peace deal that President Donald Trump says will see the release of all living hostages. The deal also has Israel withdrawing its troops from most of Gaza, initiating a ceasefire with Hamas, and many, many other things. We have the details for that. Hostages, we're told, will be home within a few days. New York Attorney General Letitia James, the same Attorney General who led that massive civil fraud case against President Trump and his business empire, has been indicted by a federal grand jury in Virginia on a bank fraud charge. And University of Tennessee at Chattanooga is overruling the student government's denial of a new Turning Point USA chapter. We have those details. And, folks, the government shutdown is headed into its 10th day. Once again, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson is standing firm, keeping the pressure squarely where he says it belongs, on the Senate Democrats. Looks like we're going to have the shutdown going into the weekend.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
One of the first to comment on the apparent peace deal in Israel was former President Barack Obama. He said yesterday that the world should be encouraged and relieved that an end to the Israeli-Gaza conflict appears near, urging Israelis and Palestinians to seize the moment to rebuild and pursue a lasting peace. Obama wrote on X, after 2 years of unimaginable loss and suffering for Israeli families and the people of Gaza, we should all be encouraged and relieved that an end to the conflict is within sight, that those hostages still being held will be reunited with their families, and that vital aid can start reaching those inside Gaza whose lives have been shattered. He went on to say more than that, though. It's now falls on Israelis and Palestinians, with the support of the U.S. and the entire world community, to begin the hard task of rebuilding Gaza and to commit to a process that, by recognizing the common humanity and basic rights of both peoples, can achieve a lasting peace. That from former President Barack Obama yesterday when we got word that both Israel and Hamas had signed the deal. Now, here's what we know about the deal and how it came about. In the days leading up to the ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas, President Trump combined regional pressure, public messaging, basically telling Hamas they needed to sign it or bad things were going to happen, basically. And he used trusted back-channel diplomacy to turn some of the tricky negotiations into a breakthrough. A senior White House official speaking to Fox News said that Trump's good relations with Qataris were a baseline factor in reaching the deal, but the Israeli strikes in Doha generated a lot of pressure on Hamas from Arab states. President Trump's post on Truth Social on Sunday, giving Hamas a deadline to agree or face devastation, was taken very seriously and helped turn things around, according to the official. Before the post, the Trump administration was hearing that Hamas would reject the deal and would put effort back to the 10-yard line like we had been so many, many times before. Mr. Witkoff reportedly said the unrest from the Doha strikes could be used for good because the Arab world did not want the unrest to spill into a regional conflict affecting their countries, nor did they want Iran to get involved. Trump also reportedly used the strikes to push Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu into compliance as well. Additionally, President Trump used public opinion on Israel and mounting political pressure to demonstrate Israelis want the war to end, telling Netanyahu ending the war is a win for you. The official said that having Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, was also a huge benefit because he brought an additional level of trust in the negotiations. Mr. Kushner, the official, added, has good credibility with Israelis and the Arab world dating back to the Abraham Accords. At points during negotiations, Kushner worked with Israel and Hamas to craft statements to ensure things did not go sideways, we're told, knowing both sides have to appease their bases but keep an open dialogue. Also, Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, we're told, met yesterday with Israeli President Isaac Herzog in Jerusalem to discuss the agreement aimed at ending the war with Hamas to finalize the details. During the meeting, the three men discussed the framework that Kushner and Witkoff had helped negotiate, which is, again, to end the fighting and to secure the release of the hostages. Herzog reportedly expressed his deep appreciation to President Trump, to Mr. Kushner, to Mr. Witkoff for their pivotal role in bringing the hostages home and advancing Israel's security. He also praised their efforts to strengthen Israeli well-being and help pave the way towards greater cooperation throughout the entire Middle East region. Now, fighting did not immediately stop. Media reports from the region indicate that fighting continued yesterday and through the night in Gaza, despite Israel and Hamas striking the deal to end the war. The Israel Defense Forces reported last night that its troops struck a Hamas terrorist cell in the northern Gaza Strip that was operating within close proximity to IDF troops. The IDF said that Hamas terrorists pose an immediate threat to the troops operating in the area, so they struck. Palestinian reports say 4 people were killed, dozens others still buried under the rubble. And it's important to note, not everyone is necessarily supportive of this within the government of Israel. The Times of Israel reported that Itamar Ben-Gvir, the far-right national security minister, said that his Atzma Yadudit party will vote against the first phase of the ceasefire deal, which stipulates all 48 Israeli hostages held in Gaza will be released in exchange of Palestinian prisoners. Some are not keen on releasing the Palestinian prisoners. Ben-Gvir also warned that while it has no current plans to leave Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition, the party will bring down the government if Hamas is not disarmed. Now, there's still work to be done. There is a festive mood, though, within Israel. Massive projections of the American and Israeli flags were illuminated on the walls of Jerusalem's Old City in celebration of the deal. And even a panel on MSNBC recognized and praised President Trump's role in this peace agreement. MSNBC panelist John Meacham, a presidential historian, and David Ignatius, a Washington Post columnist, had this to say.
I guess I should ask you, how historic is this?
Well, as ever, depends on how the chapter ends, but the beginning of this chapter is remarkable. And one of the things about honesty and citizenship and a sense of, I would say, maturity about what people in a democracy should do is, even if someone with whom you disagree about 99 things does the 100 really well, you should say so, because that's what intellectual honesty is. And so all credit to President Trump and his, as you say, unconventional team.
I can remember in the month or so after October 7, an Israeli senior official saying to me, we are so disoriented and traumatized by this war. The United States is going to have to make decisions for us. Joe Biden could never do that. And Donald Trump was able to do it, did it at the decisive moment when he said, essentially, this war must end, and Israel cannot annex the West Bank, which many right-wing Israelis wanted.
And it's also just really been special to see the response from the families who have hostages there. I also noticed a statement from Daniel Lifshitz. Mr. Lifshitz spoke with Fox News about his dad, Oded, who was abducted from kibbutz Nir Oz on October 7, 2023. And the reason this is special to me is because I actually got to see this man's home in Nir Oz when Mike Gallagher and I visited Israel within a couple of months after the attack. And they took us to this kibbutz, which is right on the Gaza border, and they showed us this burned-down home, and we heard the story of Mr. Lashif's being attacked and being taken as a hostage. And, of course, his body was returned back in February of this year. But it's just so special to see these families finally getting some hope that their living loved ones will be returned, but that also the bodies of the deceased will be returned to their families as well. Let's be honest, those summer vacations and backyard barbecues added some extra pounds, right? But instead of feeling guilty or falling further behind, it's time to reset, drop the weight, and get back in control. The solution isn't a shot. Real lasting weight loss starts with your mind, not your mouth. At PhD Weight Loss, Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team help you uncover the real reasons behind your weight gain so that you can reprogram the way you think about food forever. PhD clients lose up to a third of their body weight without ever taking a drug. I know because I lost 33 pounds with PhD weight loss. Through real food, behavioral coaching, and proven science, your body can become a natural fat-burning machine. Why risk spending thousands on shots that strip away muscle, come with dangerous side effects, and leave most people regaining 60% of the weight within a year? With PhD, you'll activate your body's natural appetite control, burn fat safely, and stay in control. Even if you're already on Ozempic, PhD can help you transition off while still losing weight. Take the first step today. Call 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. Well, folks, here we go. News out of New York, actually Virginia. The woman who made her career trying to take down Donald Trump is now the one facing serious federal charges herself. New York Attorney General Letitia James, the same AG who led that massive civil frauds case against President Trump and his business development, has been indicted by a federal grand jury in Virginia on a bank fraud charge. You heard that right. The Attorney General of New York has been indicted. The top law enforcement officer of New York has been indicted. The person who built her brand to get Trump, she ran on that in her re-election campaign to get Trump, is now the one being investigated and indicted for allegedly falsifying her own financial records. Here's what we know. The federal jury met yesterday in the Eastern District of Virginia, and after reviewing evidence gathered by the Justice Department, it handed down the indictment. Now, we have to remember this is the beginning of the process. She is innocent until proven guilty by a jury of her peers. Fox News has confirmed the charges stem from an ongoing mortgage fraud investigation that began earlier this year, an investigation triggered by complaints from Federal Housing Finance Director Bill Pulte. Now, for those of you who might not know the name, Bill Pulte is a respected businessman and housing policy expert, and in a letter to federal investigators, he alleged that James made false or misleading statements on several property and mortgage documents. Here's what's at issue. First, investigators say that Ms. James listed a property in Virginia as her primary residence, even though public records show she primarily lives in Brooklyn, New York. You have to live in New York if you're going to be the Attorney General of New York. That's a big deal because, again, listing a property at your primary home can qualify you for better mortgage rates and lower taxes. Second, records allegedly show she listed her Brooklyn multifamily property as having 5 residences when it actually only has 4, potentially misrepresenting the value of that property. Third, and the kicker, a mortgage application that reportedly stated James was her father's spouse. They claimed that, if true, could be considered fraudulent misrepresentation on a federal loan document. Now, these aren't minor mistakes. If prosecutors can prove intent, if they can show she knowingly falsified information, that's bank fraud. That is bank fraud, plain and simple. According to a housing finance banker familiar with the investigation, at least one of these cases involves an investment property that Ms. James allegedly claimed was her primary or secondary home, giving her better terms than she would otherwise qualify for. In other words, banks, when you have a rental property, it is considered a commercial loan. If you're not living in it, if it's truly a rental property for investments, that's a commercial loan, and it's treated much differently than if it is a home you're going to live in, even if it's a secondary weekend type home. Now, this is where this story gets really rich because remember, James spent years accusing Donald Trump of inflating property values and misrepresenting assets on loan documents. Does that sound familiar? Now she's the one being accused of doing exactly that. Letitia James, of course, denies any wrongdoing. Her office told reporters she simply made a clerical error when filling out a form and that she fixed it once she noticed. I'm not so sure, though, that she noticed before federal prosecutors noticed. She insists there was no intent to deceive, that it was just a paperwork mistake. But, folks, let's be honest here. If a banker in Queens or a small business owner in South Carolina accidentally listed their investment property as a primary home to get better terms, do you think federal prosecutors would shrug and say, no big deal? Of course they wouldn't. These people would be in handcuffs. And it's exactly what Letitia James wanted to do to Donald Trump. So the question is, why should Letitia James be treated any differently? Love to get your thoughts on that. Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. And now here's where it gets a little more political. The U.S. Attorney's Office leading this case is run by Lindsay Halligan, who was appointed by President Trump after her predecessor, Eric Seibert, was ousted earlier this year. Seibert reportedly resisted pursuing charges against James and former FBI Director James Comey, both of whom have been harsh critics of Donald Trump. Halligan, on the other hand, has made it clear her office intends to enforce the law evenly, regardless of political affiliation, which is how it should be. And that's something that many Americans have been waiting to see. Accountability that doesn't just go one way. Now, of course, Democrats are crying foul. New York Governor Kathy Hochul immediately came out swinging, calling the indictment the weaponization of the Justice Department. Now, she didn't have much to say when Letitia James was persecuting Donald Trump. In fact, I don't remember even hearing from Kathy Hochul. Do you? Ms. Hochul posted on X saying, New Yorkers know Letitia James for her integrity, her independence, and her relentless fight for justice. What we're seeing today is nothing less than the weaponization of the Justice Department to punish those who hold the powerful accountable. You can almost hear the talking points being printed there, can't you? The truth is this grand jury wasn't handpicked by Trump. It's made up of regular Americans in Virginia, people who saw the evidence and believed it was strong enough to bring the charges. That's the way the system is supposed to work. And let's not forget the timing here. This indictment comes just 2 weeks after former FBI Director James Comey, another Trump adversary, was charged with lying to Congress. The same Comey who led the FBI's investigation into Trump's supposed Russian collusion back in 2016 is now facing federal charges of his own. So the pendulum might finally be swinging the other way. Now, look, I don't celebrate anyone's indictment. I'm always said justice should be blind. We should not use justice should not be used for political purposes. But I do find it ironic that the people who screamed the loudest about no one being above the law when it came to Donald Trump are now changing their tune when it's one of their own in the hot seat. And you can bet the headlines will sound very different this time. When Trump was indicted, they called it justice served. When Letitia James was indicted yesterday, suddenly it's political persecution. Funny how that works, isn't it? Here's the bottom line. If these allegations are true, if Letitia James really lied on mortgage applications or property records, that's fraud. And no one, not even a state attorney general, should be above the law. In fact, the point that she is the top prosecutor, the top law enforcement official in New York, should have her held to a higher standard. She should want herself to be held to a higher standard. If she's innocent, and if this really was a clerical mistake blown out of proportion, then she deserves due process as well. That's how justice works. That's how it should always work. Either way, this is a major twist in the ongoing saga of political accountability. The woman who once boasted that she could get Trump is now finding herself answering to the same justice system she once weaponized. And friends, that's something worth following and something worth talking about. On the text line, hey, Joey, Brandon Johnson and Governor Pritzker are 1, anti-law enforcement, 2, totally anti-President Trump, 3, anti-Republican and all they stand for. That explains Brandon Johnson's activities in Chicago. Nothing more, nothing less. But the people of Chicago got what they knowingly voted for. They had the country's worst mayor, Lori Lightfoot, and then what did they do? Voted in someone worse, Mr. Johnson. Then look at the past Illinois governors, also voted in by Chicago, and then without learning, voted him in for a second and more than likely third term. I feel bad for any Republican stuck inside the Chicago cesspool. I have a feeling they're going to be stuck there for quite a while. It's from my buddy Dom, who lives in Illinois. Albert in South Carolina says the South Carolina murder case you spoke about the other day is yet another situation where judges need to be held accountable for their sentencing practices. I firmly believe that judges who let these repeat criminals out should be held criminally liable for future crimes committed by these criminals. This would force the judge to give the highest sentence for their sentencing practices crime. Weak judges are the problem. Thank you, Albert, for your text. Texter, hey, Joey, it's Jennifer. What a day. We're finally getting the hostages back, dead and alive. We're at the same time so grateful, but also waiting to see it before we believe it. And that D.C. Antifa roundtable, how proud are we of the people sitting there representing us and fighting for America? Your comments are welcome as well. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line as well. 864-477-JOEY. 864-477-5639. Always use promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com to get the very best deal on all the products Mike Lindell has to offer. He has some wonderful prices on his 6-piece towel set. They're only $39.98 when you use promo code Joey. Normally $69.98 is a 6-piece bath, two bath towels, 2 hand towels, and 2 washcloths in this set. Promo code Joey when you go to MyPillow.com or call 800-928-6034. Of course, we're headed into the weekend with our government still shut down. I haven't really said much about that yet. If we have time here in a moment, there's not a whole lot more to say other than they voted again yesterday. Democrats once again chose to keep the government closed. We'll get to that in just a minute. On Monday, this coming Monday, the 4th District GOP Club will be holding a forum with South Carolina Attorney General Alan Wilson. Free speech, one campus at a time is the topic. Plan to come by. It's at the Depot in downtown Greer. Starts at 6:45. My colleagues Tara Servatius and Charlie James will be moderating. We'll have students from Wofford and Clemson tell their stories because after Charlie Kirk's assassination, there's been a real renewed interest in these kids starting new chapters of TPUSA on campuses that had never had an interest before. Thousands and thousands of inquiries have been made by or to TPUSA from college campuses all around the country. Some of them here in the upstate, too. And they haven't always been met with open arms by some of these schools. On Monday, we're going to hear from a student from Wofford College who says that her chapter faced some obstacles when they initially applied to be approved as a student organization. So if you can join us Monday at 6:45 at the Depot in Greer, Attorney General Alan Wilson will be there to talk about free speech and how his office has been protecting free speech in South Carolina. Now, speaking of that, here's a story that kind of hits home, one that speaks to something that we've been talking about and we will be talking about on Monday. And again, that's free speech on campuses all around the country. We'll take you to Chattanooga, the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. They made a big decision. The school did, the school officials, that is sending shockwaves through higher education and giving a win to students who refuse to be silenced for being conservative. Here's the story. The school administration has overruled its own student government association, which had voted to block students from starting a Turning Point USA chapter on their campus. Now, Typically, it's the other way around. Typically, it's the Student Government Association approving it, and the school administration shuts it down. Not this case. These students wanted to form a local chapter of the conservative group founded by Charlie Kirk, and the student government said no. But the dean's office stepped in and said, not so fast. Jack Blackman, the university's vice chancellor for communications, issued a statement confirming the decision, saying this: the dean of students' office has completed its review of a group of students' application to establish a chapter of Turning Point USA on campus. The dean of students' office has determined that Turning Point USA is approved as a registered student organization. He went on to make it clear that while the Student Government Association may voice opinions, the final authority for recognizing student organization rests with the dean and the chancellor, not with the student activists trying to play politics, he said. So the university made it official. Turning Point USA is approved in Tennessee at this school in Chattanooga. And folks, that's not just a procedural decision. It's a powerful statement about free expression, viewpoint diversity, and equal treatment under the law. Now, let's put this in context. Turning Point USA, the organization, again, founded by Charlie Kirk back in 2012, has been one of the most effective youth movements in conservative politics in a generation. Its mission is simple: promote free markets, limited government, and American values on college campuses. For years, TPUSA chapters have popped up across the country, from Arizona State to Clemson University here in the upstate. And with them, there's been some controversy at times. Because, let's be honest, universities that claim to be inclusive often turn downright hostile when young conservatives show up wanting to talk about capitalism or patriotism or free speech. The UTC story comes, of course, just a month after the heartbreaking tragedy of us losing Charlie Kirk on September the 10th to an assassin. His death shook millions of Americans and left a huge void in the conservative movement, and particularly the conservative youth movement. So when these Chattanooga students tried to start a chapter in his honor to keep his message alive, and the student government turned them down, it wasn't just bureaucratic, it was personal. They claim TPUSA promotes hate speech, but the truth is, what they really hate is free speech that challenges their ideology. Well, that's when the backlash started. Local attorney Robert Barnes, who lives right there in Chattanooga, got wind of what had happened, and he jumped into action. He took to X and posted, "My hometown school at UT Chattanooga apparently told students they cannot form a campus chapter of TPUSA due to false claims of hate speech. If this is not reversed immediately, I will sue the school for the students and win, and UTC will pay the bill. Fix it now." Well, that got some attention, because soon after, Harmeet Dillon, Assistant Attorney General in the Justice Department Civil Rights Division, replied publicly saying, "Let us know what happens," meaning we're watching. We are watching you. Now, if you know Harmeet Dillon, you know she's one of the fiercest defenders of First Amendment rights in America. And it looks like her support probably made a difference, because within hours, the university had reversed its course. Barnes later told Fox News, "Many thanks to all those who spoke out, and special thanks to the AAG Dillon, who publicly voiced support for us. That was the game changer." And that's how you do it. You push back, you speak up, and you don't let the mob win. The university's decision to greenlight the Turning Point chapter follows a growing national trend where conservative groups are fighting back against politically motivated bias in higher education. Just last month, students at Rutgers University launched a petition to disband their TPUSA chapter, accusing it of creating a hostile environment. And at Texas Christian University, a student leader made headlines for vowing to restore Christian values on campus after facing backlash for affiliating with Turning Point. So this is happening everywhere. And what UTC did this week matters far beyond that Tennessee chapter and that Tennessee campus. And again, on Monday night at the Depot in Greer, as Attorney General Alan Wilson talks about what happened here in South Carolina, we'll hear stories from like Clemson, where the Clemson TPUSA chapter was instrumental in calling out some Clemson professors who ended up losing their job because of hateful speech they made celebrating the death of Charlie Kirk. Now, what does this mean culturally? We live in a time when universities talk nonstop about diversity, equity, and inclusion. But often what they really mean is diversity of appearance, not diversity of thought. They'll welcome every voice under the sun except the one that says, I'm conservative. And here's the thing. Young conservatives like those at UTC aren't asking for special treatment. They're just asking for equal treatment. The same freedom to meet, the same freedom to organize and to speak their minds that any other student group enjoys on that campus and so many other campuses around the country. That's exactly what Charlie Kirk stood for. He believed empowering young Americans to stand up for their country, to love America, defend free markets, and fight socialism with facts, not anger. That was Charlie Kirk. And his mission lives on under some great leadership from some wonderful students all around this country. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. On our guest line, Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott. Welcome. How are you?
I'm doing well, my friend. I hope you are too.
I am wonderful. Wrapping up another week, heading into the weekend. Before we get into the real important issues, I got to ask you about some of the reports in local media about this censure thing that's going on with the Greenville County Republican Party.
Well, I'm not really sure what they're upset about, right? Anybody who knows me, Joey, knows that I am very approachable. I'm very kind. I travel the state every single day. I have been very involved in GOPs all across the state. And, I just kind of laugh at it, because I think, you go back to the old adage, you play silly games, you win silly prizes. And I think the people of South Carolina, especially the people of Greenville, know who I am. I think that group can do what they want. We've seen antics that they have thrown all over the place, and it's okay. I'm really good with who I am and what I've done for the party, and I think everybody knows me, Joey. I think you know me, and this is kind of one of those silly things to get headlines, and if they think getting headlines by trying to come after me, I guess, is what it takes to get it to them, then, God bless.
Yeah. Well, and it is silly, and you could almost wear it as a merit badge, because the reputation that this group has developed, I don't know of other elected officials who are going to their meetings either.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think we should take a poll of elected officials in Greenville and see how many have showed up there. It's just one of those things. Like, I believe that everybody that's elected want to get out and see their constituents. I was invited last night. I was at the Steel Magnolia Group in North Augusta, talking to them, to a packed house of very excited conservatives, and all very friendly, all very nice, all with great questions. Tough questions. I'm not afraid to answer tough questions at all. And, I'd challenge them to put out a list of who has come to talk to them in, let's say, the last 3 years, and see if we get more than 5 or 6 names.
Yeah, well,
in
good.
Total.
Yeah. Well, we'll move on because we've probably already given them more time than they deserve as it is. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott, my guest today. Wow, what a 24 hours we've had. It appears Hamas has accepted President Trump's peace plan, and the hostages could be coming home soon.
Yes, that is, especially coming off of the heels of October 7th, 2 years. 2 years is too long for families to have waited to see if their loved ones are still alive. President Trump, once again on the global stage, showing what an amazing leader he is, bringing a deal together. And, it's peace through strength, and it's something that we've talked about over and over again with this president, is he is firm, he is resolved, and people realize when he says something, it's not an imaginary line in the sand. It is a true line in the sand. And, as you heard a lot, I was listening this morning to some of the families of the hostages that will be released. And that's what they said. It's only because of who he is and what he is that this deal even got put to the table. And we got to thank all the wonderful people he put in place to get it done. I know Jared Kushner, his son-in-law, was in the Middle East, adding to the, Abraham Accords, which President Trump, we only hear about the Abraham Accords and what that has done to unite the Middle East, adding to that and bringing those allies together to help them in stopping what Hamas was doing and what they did to Israel.
Yeah. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Abbott is with me. One of the most satisfying parts of this is you mentioned the families, and I've seen reports of the fact that some of the families were in D.C. to commemorate the 2-year anniversary of the attack. And then upon learning of the peace deal, they were able to talk with the president. I mean, what a phone call that must have been.
No kidding. I mean, how do you say thank you enough for somebody to bring home your child or your sister or your brother? I don't know, but I can only imagine that they are excited. It will be a sad day for some, though, Joey, because as you heard, there will only, I've heard reports on different media outlets that only 10 to 20 will be alive and the rest will be the bodies. Yeah. And so, please keep those families in your prayers because not everyone is going to have a joyous reunion. Yeah. Some will just be finding peace in knowing that they can bury their loved ones, which, again, being a mom of 3, Joey, I can't even imagine the heartbreak and loss of having to bury your own child.
I know, just unimaginable for sure. Switching gears a bit here, of course, the shutdown is still in full force as the Democrats apparently are digging in. They just don't want to accept the fact that this is all about giving illegals health care. Now, I keep hearing the argument, well, illegals can't qualify for Obamacare. But that's not really the point here. The point is that there's so many who use our emergency rooms as primary care, and guess where the hospitals get their reimbursement money?
Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right. They only tell half a story. The Democrats, I really thought there was some part of them that cared more for the American people than themselves, their party rhetoric, and illegals that they allowed to come across our borders. But I was wrong because last week you and I talked about, when did we think this shutdown would end? I thought it would go through the weekend and end. I think I said Monday, early part of the week. But, what I didn't count on was how little they care for the American people. Yeah. And, and what this is doing. David was traveling on business. Glad he got home with no delays last night because there's a lot of flights that are being canceled and delayed because, they are trying not to have a lot of traffic in the air all at one time. Yep. Our national parks, you keep going on. And even though federal employees, President Trump says most will get paid when this is over. What about in the meantime? Right. If people don't have a reserve in the bank, I can tell you a lot of government employees that work in those offices don't make a lot of money. I mean, I don't know what everybody's situations are, but I'm sure at some point when you don't get a paycheck, it gets hard to buy groceries and pay your bills and put gas in your car. So I've said what I said last week. Democrats should start caring more about the American people and their voters than they do about their party and illegals and get back to work.
Yep. Let's move on and do what's best for the country for sure. Lieutenant Governor Pamela Ebbett, always a pleasure. We'll catch up again soon.
Great to talk to you, Joey. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend.
That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.